Welcome to the newest episode of Far From Home, a talk with a friend abroad. Our friend and guest this week is Lorenza from Tanzania. So we're back in Africa and also back in Italy, between Italy and Africa. And I'm really happy that she is one of our guests, because as what happened during our talks and in our series, it is now like friends of friends are suggesting friends to get in touch with me and share their story. And so Lorenza is one of those. And so I'm really glad that you accepted to share your story with us. And the first question is actually how you ended up where you live now. What's your story? If you want to, what you can share with us about your story.
Thank you, Viviana.
Welcome, thank you.
Hi to everyone. Yeah, I arrived in Tanzania 10 years ago. It was 2010. Almost August, so it's almost anniversary. And it was after a sort of inner journey, let's say like this. I come from south of Italy, in a region called Puglia, so the hill of the boot, for the one that are not familiar with. But then after my studies, I moved in Milano, where I have been living for 6 years. And I was working there as a internal auditor. So I first started as a consultant for one of the big four there. And then after 3 years, I felt it was not my thing, and moved to a television company, always in the internal auditing department. So this move came from the fact that I thought that the corporate system of the big consulting companies was really not my thing. Too much competition, too much search for career of everyone that I could not feel at ease. So that's why I opted for like a more relaxed environment in a company. But is in that moment, passing from one job to another, that really instead I realized that the problem was not where I was working, but what I was doing. That was not really satisfying myself. So I continued working for the company. I stayed there 3 years, but I started like a sort of journey inside myself to understand what I wanted to do with my life. And I understood that I wanted to do something that brought an impact on people. So let's say that automatically I thought that I went to the opposite. So I thought that the thing that I should have done should relate somehow with the social services. So I started to volunteer in Italy while still working. And after that, after 3 years, I thought that I was ready for an international experience. I thought that I was ready to leave my job and to understand better what was my real professional role. It was not really clear to me. So that's how I arrived in Tanzania. In the beginning was like a sort of sabbatical year. It was supposed to be just one year, in reality 1 year and a half, where I volunteer for a local organization. I stayed as a volunteer for a local organization in Kilimanjaro region, so nearby Mount Kilimanjaro. And so there I worked as a social worker somehow for a small NGO. Then my money finished after 1 year and a half, so I came back to Italy. I worked there for other 6 months, always in the social sector. But in reality, the social sector was also not the thing that was tailored for me. That I need to somehow put economics with making something that could bring impact to people, could go together. So that's how I thought after 6 months in Italy to come back here. But this time finding a job and trying to spend my skills, what I had gained in all the previous year of work. So I came again. I started to work in a very remote area. First for spent a couple of years on the mountain in the Tanga region. And I worked for a local diocese, so a local church, but on the economic side. So I was following like the investment and income generation activities of the diocese. And then after that, I moved to Ngara, which is a small village on the border with Burundi and Rwanda. And there, let's say, my life changed. I remained there like 2 years and a half. I was working with a social enterprise called Women Craft. Women Craft is produces baskets, so works with at that time was working with around 300 female artisans weaving baskets, and I worked with them to try to support the company to develop systems into the organization. To help them to export in the EU and foreign markets. And the project, very high quality, very high standard, and really fitting, in the international market. And Women Craft is still existing now. Actually, they work like with almost 600 artisans, so they have doubled the people they work with, and they export all over the world: Europe, US, South America, Australia, Japan. In the meantime, I met the person that would become my husband, and we started dating, but I was in Ghana, I was in Dar es Salaam, and it's really far. It's like 24 hours by bus. And so it was not manageable anymore. And so I decided to move in Dar es Salaam to start my family with him. And so I am in Dar es Salaam since 2015. So unfortunately, I had to leave the job with Women Craft, but these things remained like the thing that really I enjoyed to do, working with artisans, working with people in the handmade sector, handmade producers. And so slowly, between the two kids that in the meantime have arrived, I am now I have started launching a project that started as just a blog during my maternity leave, in which I was like sharing sort of stories, positive stories of women entrepreneurs in Tanzania. So I was just interviewing and sharing their stories. But then together with it started some consultancy as a freelance, and then now it is becoming a company with the aim of supporting artisans and handmade producers in this country to arrive into the export market. So to improve their quality, to improve their production process, to create network among them and create network with buyers around the world. So this is what I am trying to do currently, among the other different things that I'm trying to do.
Yes, that's so interesting, so interesting. Like, thank you for sharing, and well done. I have a few questions. Actually, the first one is, I work with culture and cultural diversity, and one question can be a funny question, but I think it's interesting because in Malta there is a lot of like Italians from the north and the south, and sometimes they say that it's more a cultural shock to go from the south of Italy to the north of Italy than from the south of Italy. So did you have any cultural shock when you moved to from Puglia to Milano?
Absolutely yes, definitely. And really, this is what I usually say to people. I was, it was my first time to move out of my home place. So already this was, something new to me. And yeah, it can be like, a sort of funny things, or how people usually laugh about situation, but really I could not understand why people were going such in a hurry in the morning, standing on the, in the tube, when the train were passing every 2 minutes. So I was like, but if they just lose it after 2 minutes, there is another one. So why should you run all the time? So yeah, there was definitely some culture shock. Although in reality in Milano, I knew a lot of people from southern of Italy, from Sardinia, and from Puglia itself, from Sicily. So in the end of the day, I was able to make my own family. I had to adapt slowly to that, and of course to the weather also.
Of course.
Yeah, the lack of sun all over the year, definitely. Distance from the beach, surely, were things that, of course, affected me somehow.
Yes. Yes,
In fact, then I always make fun of myself, saying that then for here in the northern of Italy, I had to go very south. And that's why.
Yes, exactly. Then is a reaction. Then you have to go like south. Yes.
Exactly.
And another question is related to another maybe like cultural differences, because also there is an organizational cultural differences, and you move from a corporate sector to the no-profit sector, the not-for-profit sector. What were the differences, or there was something that you thought was like better in the corporate sector, but you couldn't apply this in the non-for-profit sector?
But in reality, I think that, what I have learned from the corporate helped me a lot, even working in the non-profit sector. I mean, the methodology of approaching the work, then it helped me so much when I had to face also a different environment. Of course, are two words that work in a completely different way. And yes, in the end, I found my equilibrium in the social enterprise model, that is a sort of, mix between the two. Because I don't think I belong either in one nor in the other. Yeah, even the pure non-profit sector, and all the issues with the donor dependency, and real sustainability of the projects and things like that,
Yes.
have not convinced me as a model that can really work in the end. Yes. So that's why my professional growth brought me then to choose to support small producers, to support small brands and small companies here, and to make them, to support them to grow somehow. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I totally agree, and I can relate, because actually what I'm doing in Malta is actually a social enterprise that we do training, but is like with this, and because I also found myself in between. I didn't want to wait for any like funds or donors. I want really to have a sustainable businesses, but at the same time, meaningful, like for me and for the society. So I can like totally relate. And
yeah, I think it's a common experience to people that somehow have faced both the word, that then they tend to find themselves in the middle somehow.
Yeah, that's true. And then COVID came, and how was for you, like personally, professionally, your family there, your family back home, or?
Yeah, let's say that in Tanzania, as many other African countries, there has not been a real lockdown. And it's somehow understandable from the cultural point of view, in the sense that here a lot of people live from daily income. So they have businesses that they manage daily, and so it's really not feasible applying like a strict lockdown like was in Italy or other European countries, because this would have seriously affected families. So I totally agree with these measures. I think that measures should somehow be rethought according to the local context and the local environment. So on one side we had no strict lockdown, but all the companies were applying it. So there was big companies were making like smart working somehow, and all the restaurants and hotels closed. Things that of course affected also from the economic point of view Tanzania, that relies for great percentage of its GDP on tourism. Personal point of view, of course, the fact of being far from the family, knowing that your parents are far and all your family is far, and especially when you listen news from a different perspective, you read things or you read comments on social medias of your friends that there. So you try to have an idea of what's really happening, but you are far and you have not a real perception of how things are going. Because in the end, the effects here were much less than in Italy. So on our daily life was not so heavy like it could have been said in Italy. So emotionally was affecting me, knowing that my family was living there, especially some of my cousins that were maybe in Milano, so in the area that was really heavily hit by it. And knowing that you try to understand the news, but you don't really have the real perception of what's going on. So that surely has had an impact. Also, my brother should have got married on April, but of course this has been shifted, and so we were supposed to travel there, but we haven't. So even this was somehow an impact on our daily life. Yeah, and then also having the children at home, so trying to manage the life, balancing things.
Yeah.
And when mama is at home, everything is searched by asked to the mother and the wife. So yeah, I think the challenge is that somehow many other people have had. But fortunately, from the health point of view here, the impact was much less than how it was in Italy.
Yeah, and what you mentioned about the information and the news, I think like there was mentioned in other talks, because for us that we were abroad, we were like following. There was also like an overflow of like news, and where was the trust? Which kind of news we could like trust, or which sources, and so like some of the other guests that we have, they say there was then I stopped watching the news. And I was just maybe like listening to my family, but because it was like too much for me, like to process. And I felt also, let's say, helpless of like receiving all this information and like actually not being able to do anything, or just being worried for something uncertainty, so uncertain.
Yeah, very true.
Good. And so what resources did you like discover or rediscover, personally, professionally? Maybe there were like something new that came out from this time.
Yeah, let's say that my resources have tried to mature during all this year in Tanzania, in reality, to adapt also to all the cultural differences from Italy between Italy and Tanzania. Surely.
Sorry. Can you mention some cultural differences that you're trying to adjust?
Between the two countries? Okay, one of the first ones surely is the perception of time. so that here is much more flexible, let's say, like this. So there is no strict timing. It's like being in the southern of Italy, but amplified.
Yes.
So the way of seeing the time is a bit flexible, and so that was. I discovered that I was a bit rigid on that, and I had to let it go slow and to adjust, definitely. And also I'm trying still to learn, although 10 years are already enough, but you just have to learn to accept things sometimes that you can't control. I am trying to learn that not everything can be under our control. And maybe this COVID is one of these things, that has maybe disrupted in the life of many people. And I think that in the end of the day, in the EU countries, and let's say in the northern of the world, as they would say, people have been affected more by this because we are like so much used to plan things and to wanting to have everything under control, that then as soon as something really big from uncontrollable happen, then we don't know how to react. So from this point of view, I think that the African countries are more flexible and more used to adjust and to change quickly to things, and also to accept things that you just cannot change.
Yes.
So in the end, I think that people are more resilient in an environment like this than we are in Europe, maybe. So these are things that I was already trying to learn with a sort of difficulty, I would say, because our cultural structure that you have absorbed for years and years during all your life. So you can't just change over a sudden. But definitely I see changes after 10 years, thank God. And one of the things instead related directly to COVID situation has been definitely my capacity of prioritizing things. Because as I said, staying home, trying to work, but also having the kids around, so time to them also. And we have 3 this month.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and it's also happened to some of our other guests, and also what you mentioned about the. I really think that COVID made evident some cultural differences, or at the same time something that we were so used to. And one is there is a cultural dimension that is called the uncertainty avoidance. And there are some cultures like Italy that they're a high level of uncertainty avoidance. So they are not able to deal with uncertainty, or is really like challenging for them to deal with uncertainty. And actually what COVID brought was a lot of uncertainty, as you mentioned. So uncertainty was unpredictable and it was so disrupted. And where there are countries or culture that are more resilient because of their history or because also of their social structure or culture, and they had another kind of impact. Probably this had another impact. So we'll see the changes that also this will bring to our countries and cultures. Super. We are almost at the end of our talk, so now there is a message to your countries in your languages. So feel free to spread your message.
Okay, maybe because I am far from Italy, and I would say it in Italian, because now it's 2.5 years I have not been there, so I just would love to tell them, a tutti i miei amici e alla mia famiglia che mi mancano tanto, e che spero di rivederli presto.
Bello, grazie. Thank
So
you.
that I miss them so much and that I hope to see them very soon.
Perfect. I hope the same for you.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for like being with us and sharing with us, and good luck with everything, with your project and everything. And thank you for also for everyone that follow us. And again, if you're interested in be one of our next guests, feel free to like get in touch and share your story. I think it's really so worthy, and I've been contacted from a lot of people that they say was really a good support also for them. So maybe they don't feel to share, but they found that it's really like interesting. So thank you again to like Lorenza and all the one that they share with us till now, with and all all the one that want to share from now on. I will keep doing this. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, Viviana, for hosting me, but also congratulations for this wonderful idea that you had to, because it's also a way, you know, to connect people from different parts of the world
Yes.
that are linked by a common thread somehow, red thread somehow.
Yes.
So it's a really, really nice thing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you again, and see you next week. Bye bye.